Music of the late 80s and early 90s was a bit of a strange time, the bridge between glam and hair metal and the sudden emergence of the genre of grunge. Guns N' Roses and Nirvana were two completely different bands who didn't really get along for a long time. And today we're going to be discussing how this happened. Hello! Welcome to Brain Spill, the laziest show on the internet. My name is Tank, and it wouldn't really be fair for me to say that the bands themselves hated each other. That was only partly true. If we really want to drill down to this, the feud was largely between the frontmen for both bands, being respectively Axl Rose and Kurt Cobain. And just the fact that I've mentioned the name Axl Rose, that should give you an idea that this is about to get pretty messy. This story starts in the early days of Nirvana in the early 90s, where Axl Rose, the lead singer and frontman of the band Guns N' Roses, was actually a fan of Nirvana, who at the time was a relatively new band on the scene, leading the way for a new genre of music in the grunge setting. This was apparent from the fact that in the music video for the song Don't Cry, he is actually wearing a baseball cap with the band's logo on it, which must have been a bit of a sting when he found out that Kurt Cobain of Nirvana wasn't really too much of a fan back for Guns N' Roses. This love was really only a one-way street. During promotion for Nirvana's album Nevermind in 1991, Kurt said the following in two interviews. The first for Seconds, he said, "We're not your typical Guns N' Roses type of band that has absolutely nothing to say." The following year, he told a Singaporean publication, "Rebellion is standing up to people like Guns N' Roses." So yeah, if you wanted to burn bridges, this is the perfect way to do it. The general gist of what he was saying was Nirvana was holding down those punk roots and Guns N' Roses had pretty much sold out and basically were making hundreds of millions of dollars and really were just a plasticky band at the end of the day. This was not something that Axl either agreed with or was particularly happy to hear. Axl Rose, seemingly unaware as to the actual reason Nirvana didn't like him, or more in particular, Kurt Cobain, said the following. "I only like you guys, Nirvana, Jane's Addiction, and two other bands, and you all fucking hate me. Why do you hate me? It's like I went away and came back home to find you guys fucked my wife." And you know what? A very small part of me can understand where he's coming from. If you've got a genuine love and appreciation for someone that you think makes good music, and they turn around and tell you to fuck off, then you're going to be pretty annoyed at that. In particular, if you have no idea why. So, despite this diss on Guns N' Roses, Axl was keen to get them on the tour as a support act, which is pretty cool, especially with the size of Guns N' Roses at the time. It would have been good to be on the same bill, mainly to get yourself out there. For Kurt, however, this of course is not something he cared about, or particularly wanted to be associated with. In 1992, Guns N' Roses were due to tour with Metallica and they wanted Nirvana to open the shows for them. And you know what, if I wasn't a baby at the time, that would have been an incredible tour to have attended. Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Nirvana. Damn man, I was born in the wrong generation. Ex-Nirvana drummer and now frontman of the Foo Fighters, Dave Grohl, recalled this in an interview and said the following. "I remember that when Nevermind first came out, Axl was a really big fan of us. Guns N' Roses was about to do this massive stadium tour with Metallica, and they wanted us to open. So Axl had been calling Kurt non-stop. One day we're walking through an airport and Kurt says, 'Fuck, Axl Rose won't stop calling me.' I think it represented something bigger. Nirvana didn't want to turn into Guns N' Roses. So Kurt started talking shit in interviews and then Axl started talking back. It went back and forth like 10th grade bullshit." So yeah, this basically just started a massive slinging match between Kurt Cobain and Axl Rose. And of course, things got heated very quickly. Something I found particularly interesting though was when this all happened, this just so happened to be the time that Nirvana also got a multi-million-dollar record deal. So what they were saying was, dare I say it, a little bit hypocritical? It would seem that there's certainly more than one side to this story. Kurt would further comment on this and he said the following. "I think Guns N' Roses are promoting the wrong values, like sexism and the way they do drugs. I mean, what are they rebelling against? I don't think this is rebellion. Rebellion is standing up to people like Guns N' Roses." Now, it is one thing to say that it was what GNR stood for, which did not sit well with Kurt, but this isn't the full story, as apparently this was the response given through the PR team of Nirvana, saying that Guns N' Roses was basically everything that Nirvana fought against. The personal hatred towards Axl stemmed from their dislike of, well, Axl himself, saying that he beat women, saying that he was a racist and a homophobe, yada yada yada. Now, a band like Nirvana, who were very, very vocal about the fact that they supported the feminist movement, well, of course they're not going to like Axl Rose, because he is basically everything that stands against that sort of ideal. The feud escalated very quickly, and this got to Axl personally. So, as a result of this, the 26-date tour that Nirvana were asked to play on, they rejected. And looking back, that was probably a smart decision because this tour was surrounded in controversy, largely down to, you guessed it, Axl Rose, because he was often late or stormed off set for no reason. And in particular for one date of the tour, because of Axl's attitude and basically not finishing his sets, a riot started from the audience, which costs hundreds of thousands of dollars of property damage. So Nirvana probably did a good thing to dodge this bullet. Axl Rose, one not to be outdone and to maintain his fragile ego, also went full diva and started talking shit about Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. And like any overgrown man-child who had his feelings hurt, he went straight for the jugular and on stage started calling out Kurt, saying that there were rumours that Kurt's child, Frances Bean Cobain, was born with birth defects due to the heavy drug usage used by Courtney Love. Which is a low blow to say the least, and I certainly don't blame for fucking hating his guts, because if someone said that to me, I think I would feel just the same. Axl even went on to cuss out Nirvana whilst playing a live show and burn the very hat he wore for the video Don't Cry, which really just drove the point home. Any love he had for the band had long but evaporated. So, you have two fully grown men who are very well known going at it publicly, and things really seem to go to a head on the MTV Awards in 1992. Does anyone remember MTV? You know, that station that used to play music? Not alien conspiracy theories and all that shit right now. Anyway, side tangent. Both the members of Guns N' Roses and Nirvana attended this award show, where some coarse words were had between Axl, Courtney Love and Kurt backstage. This wasn't just limited to them, however, where the bassists of each band, Duff and Christ, would badmouth each other backstage, with Grohl even trying to antagonise Axl on stage by doing this. Basically, they went on set and they just started smashing everything of Guns N' Roses on stage, which they again weren't too happy about. Duff McKagan, Gilby Clarke and a few others of the Guns N' Roses crew headed to the trailer of Nirvana to try and fight them. Although the band did not go directly back there after their gig, however, so a fight never actually happened. However, they decided to try and tip the trailer as an act of vengeance, which apparently didn't go according to plan. Following that night, things kinda simmered down a little bit. I mean, there were a few spits here and there, but nothing quite that bad. So by this point, although they clearly hated each other, nothing else really happened until April 1994, where Kurt Cobain was found dead. It was at this moment that the other band members for both Guns N' Roses and Nirvana eventually came together and decided to bury the hatchet. Things have certainly not been as bad over the most recent years, with some more friendly relations developing. Matt Sorum, the drummer for Guns N' Roses, offered condolences for what occurred and has even now become good friends with Dave Grohl. Duff McKagan has publicly apologised to Christ for their confrontation that occurred on the MTV Awards, and there's even been recent warming of relations when Slash of Guns N' Roses played on stage with Dave Grohl on drums when backing Motorhead's Lemmy Kilmister at the Revolver Golden Gods Awards when he was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2010. If you're ever going to put things to bed, this is the perfect way to do it. More recently, in June 2015, many of you may know that Dave Grohl broke his leg after doing a show in Gothenburg, Sweden, by falling off the stage. And what had to happen for the remainder of his tour and for the remainder of time that he had his leg broken was that Dave had to sit in a custom-made throne so he could actually still perform with a broken leg, which is pretty epic. The same fate would befall Axl Rose a year later, right as Guns N' Roses reformed with the actual band members bar Steven Adler. So it wasn't just Axl and friends at this point, and clearly this left a bit of a dent in their reunion show. An LA warm-up gig was where he broke his leg, and he reached out to Dave to rent the chair from him, to which Dave basically just offered the chair to him for free. A nice gesture, and this certainly shows that there's hopefully no hard feelings over what occurred beforehand. All it took was some growth, some perspective, and hopefully a bit of maturity along the way for these people to come together and put aside their differences. Kurt Cobain obviously felt very strongly about his resentment of Axl, but those reservations seem to have dissipated as the years have gone on through the other bandmates of Nirvana, who have all now gone on with their own projects following Kurt's passing. As a matter of fact, Nirvana's old manager has recently commented on the history of the band's feud and believes that Kurt would be good friends with Guns N' Roses if he were alive today. He said the following: "I actually think that if Kurt were alive, I've noticed that the Rose supports Democrats lately, and I'm sure he's been through a lot in his life. And it's just as likely as not that they would be friends if Kurt were alive today. But at that moment in time, it was like two clashing philosophies." And I think honestly that quote sums up this entire story as to where it started and where things could be if Kurt was still with us today. Now, let's just hope that Kanye West and Taylor Swift can bury the hatchet in the same way. If you like the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload my next video, be sure to hit the bell button. And if you've got any ideas for what topics you'd like me to discuss next, let me know down in the comments below. As always, sources used in the video will be in the description. So, if you take anything away from this video, I'd say two things. One, people who clearly hated each other can eventually bury the hatchet, and it just takes a bit of time. And the second is that Dave Grohl is a badass. Sorry, I just had to say it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.